You want to learn how to burst on Hayato? Then this is the perfect video for you. I'm going to be going over every single nuance that comes with bursting on Hayato. It is not as easy as it looks, and I'm sure you're going to learn something by the end of this video. And if this video did help you out, then please consider subscribing or maybe watching some of my other videos or guides. With that being said, I'm going to be doing the burst, and then we're going to watch back the burst together, and I will explain every single little thing that is happening. So let's begin. Alright, so let's get into the analysis of what's happening here. I'm going to be breaking down every single thing that happens during the Hayato burst, but if you want even more information on Hayato, I have a fully in-depth Hayato guide on everything about the class, not just the bursting, so be sure to watch that as well. The first thing I do is pop Weapon Aura, and the reason why I pop that first is because it lasts for a very long time, and it will last throughout the duration of my burst, so I want to pop it first because it has a super long duration. Next, I pop Arachnid Reflection and Solar Crest if you have these skills. The reason I pop them next is because they both last for 50 seconds, which fits throughout the entirety of my burst, so I want to pop it before I pop my big skills. Then I pop Princess's Vow. Princess's Vow lasts for 60 seconds and gives you a 10% damage buff. You could pop it before Arachnid Reflection and Solar Crest if you want, because it does have a longer duration, but it doesn't matter too much. Then I pop Princess Sukuno's Blessing. So Princess Sukuno's Blessing is the main bursting buff that you have on Hayato. It's a buff that lasts for 45 seconds and gives you more final damage as the buff diminishes. So the longer you have this buff up, the stronger you are, which makes Hayato a back-ended burst class, which means that most of its damage will come out towards the end of its buff cycle versus at the start. Right after I press Sukuno's Blessing, I press Sengoku Force. And the reason why I press Sengoku Force right away is because they both last 45 seconds. So you want to always use them together. It lines up very nicely, and Sengoku Force themselves give you a buff depending on which ones come out, so you want to use them right away. So as soon as Sengoku Force comes out, I'm pressing Ryblade Flash, and if you'll notice, I press Phantom Blade pretty much at the same time. Now, this is a little bit tricky, but Hayato does have weaving that you need to learn to use your Phantom Blade properly. So if you'll notice, if we go on a frame by frame, if you'll notice, Ryblade Flash kind of has two parts of its animation. Ryblade Flash being your main attack skill. It has the animation as it's coming out, and it has the animation when it's fully extended out, right? If you were to press Phantom Blade while holding down Ryblade Flash, the Phantom Blade would not come out properly. You would either have the Phantom Blade come out and then you stop Ryblade flashing, or you would keep Ryblade flashing and the Phantom Blade does not come out at all. But if you were to press Phantom Blade in the beginning part of Ryblade Flash, it's really just for like a split second here, then you can have Phantom Blade and Ryblade Flash come out at the same time, and it makes it so that you don't lose any Ryblade Flashes as you're stacking up. This is a very, very important skill to have on Hayato, as it increases your DPS a lot. You don't want to stop doing your main attack to stack up. You'll be losing a lot of damage that way. Now, let's talk about Phantom Blade. So this skill that's like red and black that's coming out, this skill is called Phantom Blade, and it's a skill that costs 200 energy. That's why I'm starting at 1000 energy at max, because I need to use it 5 times as well. The reason I want to use it 5 times is the skill is actually a buff that also does damage, and it gives you 23% final damage every single time you use it. So if I use it 5 times, I will have gained 115% final damage. So it's very, very, very important to stack up to 5 Phantom Blades right at the start of your burst so that you are at your maximum amount of final damage throughout the entire burst. Now, some people like to enter their bosses with 5 stacks already pre-charged. That's perfectly fine to do, so that way you don't have to charge the stacks inside of the boss. But I find it more realistic to do the initial 5 stacks at the start of the boss, because a lot of people won't take the time to actually get the 5 stacks outside and then enter the boss with the 5 already. Especially if you're party bossing, you don't want to make your party wait just so you have to stack up outside and then yell at them to enter as quickly as possible before the buff drops. So you're going to see here that I'm stacking my Phantom Blade 5 times as I'm pressing Ride Blade Flash. So I'm not losing any of my main attack skills as I'm pressing it. So you'll see this is the second Phantom Blade. Each Phantom Blade up to the 5th one has a different animation. And I'm pressing it as the first part of the Ride Blade Flash is coming out. The first part of the Ride Blade Flash and the second part of the Ride Blade Flash have different animation canceling properties, which sounds really crazy, but that's just how it works. So because I press Phantom Blade within the first part of the Ride Blade Flash, the second part of the Ride Blade Flash, which is the longer extended part, animation cancels the attack lock that Phantom Blade gives. So you see now I'm on my second stack here. So after I get my second Phantom Blade stack here, I press Falcon's Honor. You can see it come up right here. I could press Falcon's Honor. And the reason why I press Falcon's Honor is because Falcon's Honor gives you plus 100 energy upon use. So I know that I'm going to be pressing Phantom Blade 5 times at the start of my burst, right? Which means I will be expending 1000 energy. But I also know that I need to use my God of Blades Susano skill, which costs 150 energy. So basically, I need to spend 1150 energy, but my limit is only 1000, right? From the gauge. So I stack Phantom Blade 2 times so that I can press Falcon's Honor and have enough room in the gauge to have enough energy to press Susano and finish the rest of my stacks. So that's why I'm pressing Falcon's Honor here. Another very important thing about Hayato is when you are in your bossing stance, every single attack that you do gives you plus 2 energy. In combination of Falcon's Honor and all the plus 2 energies that I'm getting from hitting the boss, I will have enough energy to press Susano and be able to stack up 5 times. I know it's complicated, but it makes sense. And it's something you have to do to burst optimally. So I press Falcon's Honor. But as I press Falcon's Honor, I press Instant Slice, which cancels the Falcon's Honor because Falcon's Honor puts you in a small animation lock. So I press Falcon's Honor into Instant Slice, and I press my third Phantom Blade as I'm pressing Instant Slice as well. So as you can see on the screen, I have Falcon's Honor going off and Instant Slice going off and the third Phantom Blade stack going off, all pretty much in the same instant. And the reason how I'm able to do that is you can put Phantom Blade inside of an in-game macro, which allows you to use Phantom Blade in the middle of other animations. So because I have it set up this way, I'm able to use Falcon's Honor, Instant Slice, and Phantom Blade all in one instant while still Ride Blade flashing, so I don't lose any DPS uptime. As you can see, all of this is happening in the first part of the Ride Blade Flash. And then the second part of the Ride Blade Flash happens and all of the skills finish, right? And because I used Falcon's Honor and I'm attacking at the same time, I'm going to have enough energy to not only stack up 5 times, I'm able to place down my Susano as well, which costs 150 energy itself. So I press Ride Blade Flash again, first half of the Ride Blade Flash, then I press Phantom Blade, which is this long one now because we're in the 4th animation of it, and I'm on 4 stacks now. I need to stack up one more time, so I press Ride Blade Flash again, and as Ride Blade Flash is coming out, I press the 5th Phantom Blade, which is this big swirly one. So now I'm at 5 stacks, and I'm just under the amount of energy I need to press my Susano, which needs 150. So if I didn't use the Falcon's Honor animation cancel in the middle of it, I would be minus 100 energy right now. And then I would have to Falcon's Honor right now, which is obviously not good because as the Princess Sukuno's buff decays, I'm getting stronger and stronger because it gives you more and more final damage. You want to get all of this out of the way at the start of your burst because you're not as strong at the start as you are towards the end. So now that I'm at 5, I'm going to continue Ride Blade flashing. Every single time I press Ride Blade Flash, it gives me plus 2 energy, as you can see. Every single time I get plus 2 energy until I'm at 150. The moment I hit 150 energy, I will be putting down my Susano. So my Susano gets placed down, and now it's up. The Susano is a 30-second duration summon that does a lot of damage, but it's very important to know that the Susano, when it goes away, does a huge explosion damage at the end of it. Most of the damage that you get from Susano is at this ending explosion. You can actually press the skill again to cancel it early and do the explosion early. So it's not that big of a deal if you cancel it early to do the big explosion, which I will be doing later in the burst rotation. Also, keep in mind that the Susano, when it goes away, it gives you plus 800 energy, which will come into play later, but just keep that in mind. So Susano is out. I'm Ryblade flashing still, my main attack skill. And it's very important for Hayatos to keep an eye on the buff bar because you need to know when the Phantom Blade buff is going to expire. This Phantom Blade buff is such a tremendous amount of your damage. You need to upkeep the buff. And the way you upkeep the buff is by casting Phantom Blade again. And if you remember, Phantom Blade costs 200 energy to use. So as I am bursting, I'm going to be using Falcon's Honor to replenish my energy so that I can upkeep my Phantom Blade. Another thing you need to keep an eye on is your Sukuno's buff. You need to make sure that you get all of your attacks off towards the end of your Sukuno's buff and you don't waste it. So right now, everything is pretty chill. I'm just using Ryblade Flash. And you'll notice here, at the 30-second mark of Sukuno's, there's 30 seconds left of my burst, I press a skill called Sudden Strike. And the skill Sudden Strike is a debuff on the target that gives you 20% more boss damage hitting it. So you want to debuff the boss when there's 30 seconds left. The Sudden Strike debuff lasts for 30 seconds, so that's why I'm doing it now. But here's the thing. You can animation cancel the Sudden Strike debuff with Instant Slice. If you were to not do that, then you would be stuck in a pretty long animation of Sudden Strike and you will not be able to continue attacking. So you're animation canceling Sudden Strike with Instant Slice, which allows you to keep attacking. Now, I press Shinsoku here. It's important to use Shinsoku off cooldown because it is a very short cooldown, like mini burst. This skill is going to get even stronger after the mastery, and it's going to be even more important to be using. Now, the thing is with Shinsoku and Instant Slice, if you were to have a continuous ring, if you're doing your rotation with a continuous ring, it's very important to use those skills when the continuous ring procs. But since this is just a demonstration of the skills and what to do for most people that probably don't have rings, there's no continuous ring on right now. But I just wanted to let you guys know that. So I press Shinsoku here, and Shinsoku is a extremely fast skill, so you could pretty much Ryblade Flash right after it. And I'm continuing to Ryblade Flash. Every single time I use Ryblade Flash, I get plus 2 energy, if you remember. Now, I press my God of Blades buff, which is a 30-second buff that gives you 50 attack. You should actually be using this buff a little bit earlier than this. I pressed it a little bit late, around 27 seconds left, but you should press it a little bit earlier. You can press it just before you do the Sudden Strike animation for the debuff, and that's fine. But it's better to use it a little later than not using it. This skill has like no animation lock to it, so you could just press it and not really worry about anything. So I'm continuing to press Ryblade Flash. My energy is going up. Now I see that my Instant Slice is coming up here, right? So I wait for my Shinsoku to come up as well, so that I can Falcon's Honor to gain plus 100 energy, right? As we mentioned before, I animation cancel the Falcon's Honor with Instant Slice. Instant Slice does do a lot of damage, and I press Shinsoku as well during all of that to get off a mini burst of damage. And then I press my AB link. Now that there's around 15 seconds left of the Sukuno's buff, this is where the origin comes into play. AB link is actually very important on Hayato because the ending burst is very strong on Hayato. So it's very important to press the AB link before you press your origin. During your origin, you're going to have to be pressing a lot of different skills at the same time. So it's very important to get the long animation skills out before you press your origin because you're not going to have time to use AB link during the origin. I actually recommend getting some buff duration on Hayato to make the AB link last long enough, which you can get through your Legion board if you have really high Legion. So I press my AB link. Now, remember, always keep an eye on the Phantom Blade buff. There's only 8 seconds left of it, but I do have enough energy to refresh it, so I'm not worried. Then I press my origin. As my origin is coming out, look at the gauge here. As my origin is coming out, you will see that I went minus 200 energy. How did I do that, right? I'm in the middle of my origin. if you were to press Phanta Blade with the in-game macro, you are able to actually cast it in the middle of your origin. So I'm able to refresh the buff in the middle of my origin. And the reason why this is ideal is because during your origin, you can't do anything, right? The only thing you could do is refresh your Phanta Blade stack. So it's a perfect time to refresh it as you're not losing anything. So my origin comes out. The moment my origin fully opens up, you will see a buff appear at the top of your screen. That's the Jin Quick Draw buff, and it lasts for 10 seconds. This buff gives you an additional 10% final damage. So this is when you are at your absolute peak, your strongest, right? So my origin opens up, and I'm attacking right away. As soon as I see this Jin Quick Draw buff appear, I cancel my Susano a little bit early, right? My Susano still had a couple seconds left on it, but I cancel it. So I get the big explosion from it. And if you remember, the Susano gives you plus 800 energy when it does the big explosion. So I go from having no energy to almost max energy, right? And immediately I start spamming Phanta Blade with Ryeblade Flash, doing the weaving, right? So I don't lose any Ryeblade Flashes. First part of Ryeblade Flash comes out with Phanta Blade. So I'm burning all of my energy here. Once I'm at 100 energy, I immediately press my Batujutsu Zonko ability, right? Zonko itself also gives you plus 700 energy. That's why you don't want to, if we go back here, you don't want to use the Susano explosion that refreshes your energy to full and Zonko at the same time because you will overcap on energy, which means you are not getting as many Phanta Blades out as you can. So I use my Susano, I burn all of my energy so that I have enough room in the gauge to press Zonko, which gives me an additional 700 energy, but Zonko has a really long animation, so I use Instant Slice to cancel the Zonko animation, and as I'm canceling it, I press Shinsoku while I'm in the origin, so I have even more final damage, and I start burning my Phanta Blades as well, using the in-game macro Phanta Blade, which allows me to use Phanta Blade in the middle of other skills. So I'm doing the classic weaving Ryeblade Flash with Phanta Blade. And then I see that my origin is about to run out and there's around 5 or 6 seconds left of Sukuno's. I want to close my origin because the ending closing animation of the origin does take a few seconds. So you want to pop it before Sukuno's has 5 seconds left so that all of the damage fits within the Sukuno's buff. So I have 450 energy left. I start using my origin. The origin, if you press it 3 times, you can get these super big slashes that activate. Each slash gives you a lot of energy. So that's why you want to burn your Phanta Blades before you do it so that you have enough space for the energy that you get from the super big slashes, right? That's 1, that's 2, and that's 3, right? So now I'm at 900 energy, and I'm going to press my origin one more time to close it. So here's another thing about Hayato. The more energy you have, the stronger you are. So I want to close my origin at as high energy as possible, right? But I'm also using the in-game macro Phanta Blade to use Phanta Blade in the middle of closing my origin to get off even more damage. As you can see, my energy is going down, and that's because I'm pressing the in-game macro Phanta Blade to get off more of them. So that's the end of the burst. Me personally, I also press Hitakiri 100 strikes right at the end, while I still have Sukuno's and everything up, because if I were to be using a Ring of Restraint or something like that, I wouldn't want to use Hitakiri 100 strikes, which would dash me out of it in the middle of my origin, and I would waste that massive buff. So I just got used to using 100 strikes right after the origin. 100 strikes at the moment doesn't do too much damage, so it's not that big of a deal to use it outside of your origin, but in a perfect world, you would use Hitakiri 100 strikes inside of your origin because your origin gives you an additional 10% final damage buff. So all the damage calculates. You can animation cancel your Hitakiri 100 strikes in the exact same way that you animation cancel Phanta Blade. With the first half of your Ryeblade Flash, you press it, and then the second half of the Ryeblade Flash animation cancels Hitakiri 100 strikes. So I'm able to still move around and attack as its animation is going around. And I keep attacking until my Sukuno's runs out, because once Sukuno's runs out, your burst is finished. And that's it. So I hope that video helped you guys out. If you have any questions, please leave a comment and I will get back to you. There's also the Hayato Discord, which I will be linking down below that you can join and ask questions in. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you guys so much, and I'll see you next time. Thank you so much to my goats, Blazefire, Shooms, Uju, Shagad, Ravi Espa, Grim 4K, Koga, Pabo, Piconir, Jesse, and Niles. I appreciate you guys so much.